All right, so let's get started on build techniques and build parts or whatever you want to call it. Let's get started on the builds of these FEs. There's three different FEs right here. Well, there's three FEs here, but they're all going to be built differently, and different techniques will be used. Now let me explain that. One, this is mine. This is for me. I will do stuff on my engines that I wouldn't do on other people's engines. I'm sure some of y'all understand that. I am used to using old stuff that's laying around and factory Ford parts, and I'm used to making old stuff work. And I've learned over the years of how to do that. This block has been sitting a long time, but it already been bored at home, but it's sit for a long time. So it's got some, it's not rust, it's some oxidation on the cylinders. So I'm gonna take a brush hone, a dingleberg hone, whatever you want to call it, a ball hone. I'm gonna take this and just run in and out of the cylinders here and just clean them up, freshen them up, knock anything off so they're smooth. So I'm going to use the word smooth, but you want a cross hatch kind of pattern in there. You want to get that pattern on it, and that's what I'm going to do with this. And then I'm going to take my bore gauge and I want to check each piston and each hole and make sure I've got the clearance I want. Now, you won't see me use this on the black one over there because it's fresh out of the machine shop. Like, it just came out of the machine shop where it's bored and honed. So it's been bored, honed, and it ran through a vat. That motor's clean. That motor's already, all this process has already been done. It's already taken care of. Again, I wouldn't necessarily do this on someone else's engine because I know there's people out there that would have reservations about it. But I've been doing this for years on mine. I turn these motors 7,000 RPMs. I don't have any issues with them. It's never let me down. So I will do this on mine. I'm not suggesting that anybody else do it. But if you're in a bind and money is an issue and you're on a tight budget, this is a good way to clean cylinders up. Now, this will not change the shape of the cylinder, and that's why I'm using this. You'll get bore taper over time. The top of the bore and the bottom of the bore will be different sizes over time, and that's just how the piston kind of works in there. This will not fix that. These bores are already straight because this block had been bored. So these are already straight. I'm just trying to clean them up, and that's what this will do because this is kind of foreign to them. This won't actually straighten anything. It just cleans up what's there. So it works perfect for this. But on an engine that has had miles on it and that has not been to a machine shop, this would not be what I would use. So what I do, a little lubricant. You don't need to overdo it. A little WD-40, whatever your choice is, whatever your brand is, put it in there. And that's all it takes. A simple, just a few swipes up and down. Wipe all your debris out with a good cloth, something that's not going to leave a bunch of residue behind. Whatever your brand of choice is, I'm not here to tell you any particular brand. And now you have a clean, smooth bore that is ready for assemble. Now I will clean these again with some good cleaner, but that's all there is to cleaning the bore up. The next thing I'll clean up will be the lifter bores, and then we'll do a good little rub down on that motor, and I'll start putting cam bearings in the motor. Now I do the same process for the lifter bores, but I use this small stone hone. This is actually made for like brake cylinders, wheel cylinders is what it's made for, but it works good for this. Now you don't want to just get down in there and hog them out because you'll make them too big. You just want them to be smooth, and your finger will tell you that. You just want to be smooth. You want the lifter to be able to move up and down in there with zero restrictions. You want to just be able to, there's no cam in this motor right now, so if I set one right here, you just want to drop through like a slip and slide when you was 8 years old. You just want it to shoot through there. That's what you want. So there's no resistance on it. If it's sticky and there's resistance, you're gonna have lifter failure. It's gonna happen. It may not happen the first startup, it may not happen the second startup, but it's gonna happen. So you wanna make sure that you don't skip on this step and make sure that that's done. Now again, I'm doing it on this block and I'll do it on that block there, but the block that we painted black that I'm building for someone else, it's a customer motor. The one I'm doing for someone else, I won't do that on because that process was done at the machine shop as well. The machine shop took care of everything on that motor. All I've got to do is put the cam bearings in, expansion plugs in, and start building that motor. So that motor is ready to go. Now I will run a brush through all the oil galleys to make sure everything's clean, but for the most part, that engine is ready to assemble or to start putting parts on. So I'm going through this process basically to show you what you do if you was building it at home in your backyard on kind of a budget. This right here is for Wayland, our 63 F100, which is a budget build truck. If you go back and watch the videos on it, we have a $3,000 all-in budget on that truck. So I really have to watch the nickels and dimes on every part of it. And this is how I can put this engine together, make reasonably good horsepower, but really keep the cost down. So these are just some tips that I do. You do not have to follow these. You don't even have to agree with these. And you don't necessarily have to think this is the best practice or any other comment you want to make. What I'm saying is this is how I do it. And I have been running Legacy, our Galaxy, for 5 years on the track, and it's been put together and built this way every time it's been done, and that those engines have lived 7,000 RPMs with no problem. You don't have to do it this way, take it for a grain of salt, but I am going to show you as we go. I'm going to show you some things that are some mods that you definitely probably want to do to an FE motor. A lot of people hear about oil mods and things. I'll show you a few of those, not all of them, but we'll get to those in a second. Again, first thing I want to do is get lined up and get my little hone set. And that's it. I just want them to be smooth and cleaned out. That's all I want. So I'm gonna knock the rest of these out, and then I'll bring you right back in for oil mods. So let me get you in here and show you what I want. Let me get my hand under here where the cam would be. If I stick this lifter in here, right here on this first one, you see how it'll just, hopefully you can see that, how it just kind of lays in there. And if you let go of it, it would fall all the way through. It just falls all the way through. Come down here to one that I haven't done yet, and the lifter will go up and down in it pretty easily, but if I let go of it, it just stops wherever I let go. I want this lifter to be able to just not flop around, that's the wrong word, sorry, scratch that from your memory. I want this lifter to be able to just come up and down with zero resistance, no resistance on it at all. The reason I'm so adamant that I want this lifter to move up and down freely with no resistance at all, and before anybody thinks that I'm screwing up a good lifter, this is not a good lifter. This is a lifter from a set that one of the two of the lifters got wiped out, and when I pulled them all out, I always save an old lifter that's in good shape for stuff like this and clean it up and all. So the reason I want the lifter just to kind of drop through there when I let go of it with no resistance, as you can see, the other one went in there, but you could move it up and down pretty easy, but if you let go of it, it stayed where it was. The one I'd worked on, when you let go of it, it just drops through. The reason I want that is because people that have never seen them work probably don't know this. Some of you guys that do this a lot do understand this. A lifter doesn't just go up and down. A lifter turns as it goes up and down. So this lifter is spinning inside that bore as it goes up and down. That's what makes a lifter live. Most of the time when you see a lifter wiped out, it's because it quit spinning and just went to going straight up and down. with that being said, I want zero resistance on this thing. I don't want it to flop around in there. That was a bad choice of words earlier. I don't want loose as far as flopping around, but I want it so that it's got just enough free play in it that it would drop straight through. That way this can spin like it's supposed to, move up and down like it's supposed to. There's no restriction on this lifter. I have found that to always give me the absolute best results. I've had very few lifter failures, even in this modern era where everybody's having lifter failures. I've had very few. Actually, I've only had one instance where I had lifter failures. It was from this set, actually. Was the only instance I've had any lifter failures in the last 4 or 5 years. Was this particular set. So I do believe that it had a lot to do with the lifter bores. That was one of those where, again, I did something for my own engine that I normally wouldn't do, and I was in a hurry. We needed to do a cam swap. We had a race to get to, and it was jerk this cam out, shove it in there, throw the lifters in, fire it up. It was just, let's get there and get our show up points, which we did, but it did cost us a cam and lifter set to do it. So it was a mistake I made by getting in a hurry there. That is one of the reasons I'm so adamant about it. I'll never put an engine in anything that I own again that I don't touch these lifter bores before I put them together. Take it with a grain of salt. You can do it if you want to. You can skip that step if you want to. You can believe in it. You can hate on it, whatever you want to do. That's where I'm at. I will not do another engine for my vehicles that I do not touch these lifter bores before it goes in. All right, now that we got all that cleaned out, let's talk oil mods. You hear that a lot in the FE world, the term oil mods and all. So let me break it down for you. There is what's the right way to phrase this? There is a theory or a thought in the FE world that you can suck all the oil from the pan up into the heads cause oil starvation, blah, blah, blah. My thoughts on the process is from my firsthand knowledge of what I've ran and seen. If you're not turning this motor above like 5 grand regularly, I don't feel like you need oil mods. But I'm gonna go over with it. You can determine for yourself if you want to do these mods, and I'll tell you how I do them. The most common, the one that is most out there, the one that you will find videos on everywhere, the one that everyone wants to talk about is restricting oil to the head. With that, the subcategory of that, the most common way people do it, the one you hear talked about the most, is they take the head and they put a Holley carburetor jet in the oil hole that comes up where your rocker pedestals are, and they restrict it that way. I do not do it that way. I don't feel that that is the best way to do it. I feel that I don't feel that to be the correct way to do it. Now, hold on, I gotta take a break because right now there's some FE guy out there that's gotta catch his breath because he's been screaming at his TV for like 5 minutes now, so hold on. So I restrict the flow to the head through the block by putting an oil restrictor in the top of the block here to restrict the flow. Basically, it's doing the same thing, but I feel this is a more permanent, stable fix because one, it's threaded in here, it's in place, but now you have a head sitting on top of it. It kind of traps it in there. I feel like it can't go anywhere. It makes me feel better. It's my security blanket. I'm Linus. That's my little blankie. I put the oil mod in the block, not in the head. Another one that is popular is gasket matching where your oil filter housing goes. Gasket matching all that so it's got a good flow. And coming in here and taking some of these sharp curves out and radiusing them out just a hair. Don't make it look like the Liberty Bell in there. That's not what I'm saying. Just knock the sharp edges off. Those are the two most common oil mods that most people do. This block will, this block will not be getting any other oil mods past that one. The 410 block will be getting some additional oil mods in the valley. There will be some restrictors put in place for where the lifters go in, because it's going to get a full roller setup, roller lifters and all, solid roller lifters, so it doesn't need oil flow there. That's parasitic drag on your cam, just extra oil dripping on that you don't need. Those are a few of the oil mods. Hopefully that gives you some ideas. The biggest one that I want to talk about was restricting the oil to the head at the block and not at the head. I change heads a lot. I do, in that search for power and trying different things on the heads. Actually, I have a really, really cool set of heads that are going on this engine. They're already, I already have them. I've had them for years, and they've had just absorbent amount of work done to them. So they're going to be the heads that go on this engine, mainly because they're already here and I already have them. So, and I don't think anybody else would value them as much as I do, because nobody else had to put the work into them to get them there. So that's all we're doing to this block. The block right back here that we're doing, it's going to have a little extra step in it as far as how we clean all these bores up and everything, and how we do that, because it is staying standard bore. So just so everybody understands, when I talk about being a King bearing guy, it's not something I just talk about, it's something I am. You can see here that going in this engine, that is my personal engine, it is getting King rod and main bearings. It's also getting King cam bearings. All the bearings in this engine will be King bearings. So before there's any thought that I just pitch them but I don't use them, King bearings goes in everything that I run. If I run it, I run a King bearing. If you pay me to build you a motor, you're the boss and I'll do what you want to. But if you get a motor that comes from me, that I put together, you can rest assured that it's going to have King bearings in that engine. Now let's discuss the cam bearings. If you've never done cam bearings before and you're not comfortable doing cam bearings, I suggest letting your local machine shop do them. Honestly, it's not expensive. I think our local machine shop here charges about $30 or $35 to do them. So honestly, if you're not comfortable with this process, don't do it. That's the best advice I can give you, because it is an important part of the process. Cam bearings come in a box with a divider in it, and they're in order. They're in order in the way that they go into the block. All the holes in all the cam journals are not the same size. They are different sizes in there. So you have to have the cam bearing that goes with the hole 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's simple. It's foolproof. They have, I think you can see them right there. These line up with the oil holes in the block where the oil comes in to oil the cam, the cam itself at. Those line up. So when you drive them in, you have to line those up with the oil holes that's in the block. Honestly, I would like to say it's a pretty straightforward process. You put them in the order they're in here, and you put them in to line up with the oil holes in the block, and you can't really screw it up. But you kind of can if you're not paying attention and not careful, because you've got to be very careful about how you drive them in to drive them into the correct place. So again, it's something that's kind of tedious, and it's not difficult, but it really requires an eye for detail. And be honest with yourself, if you're not that guy, then it's very cheap to have your local machine shop. Okay, so when it comes time to actually deal with the cam bearings, now this block has, this block we're starting from scratch. The other blocks, we're a little further along in the process, so we got to catch this block up to those so we can run through and do everything at one time. Kind of like a little assembly line. So when it comes to cam bearings, I've got to knock the old cam bearings out of this motor, and it's virtually the same process, just in reverse. There's people out there that like to do it different ways. I like to turn the motor upside down so that I can see the tool down in here that goes with no crank or nothing in here. I can reach all the way down through there and, peekaboo. I can reach all the way down through there and hold the tool as it goes through, or I can pull the bearing off as it goes through, or whatever I need to do. I just find it easier to work with the block upside down. That doesn't mean you have to do it. Some people I know are more comfortable with the block turned right side up doing it. Some people may like to rock the block over on its side. That way they get the best of both worlds. Do whatever you're comfortable with on the process. That doesn't change anything about how it's done, just personal preference. So there's several parts to this tool, and you kind of have to put it together as you go. There's, I think, there's 5 different sizes of the piece that actually goes onto the cam bearing here. And that piece that fell over. There's 5 different sizes of these. So you gotta find the one that's right for your bearing. Now these do expand. This is actually rubber around them. You slide this, the way it expands is it slides over the end of this collar here. And then as you turn that, it expands this to get bigger. Now, as you go further back, there's a collar that slips over. It's a cone, and that cone keeps you centered so that you're staying straight as you go. Now, you can take this off, slide this forward. You don't have to use this whole thing at once, but I don't want to have to take it out and back, take it apart 3 or 4 different times and have to do the same thing over and over. So I choose to put it all together and work with it from there. So once you have it installed, and again, you don't have to use the whole tool at once. That's just, I don't want to do it more than once. So once you have it all installed, you just give it a couple little whacks on the back. And it drives the bearing through to the other side. You reach inside, loosen the tool a little bit, and then you can slide the bearing off the tool, and you'll see that this bearing, I'm gonna go ahead and get it ready for the next one while I'm here. So you'll see that it pops the old cam bearing out. That's the old one that came out, and you can see that it was probably not bad, honestly, when when the motor was parked. This cam bearing probably wasn't bad, but it's all one thing. It's always safe, or it's always better to be safe than sorry when it comes to bearings. But this could have probably been kind of cleaned up because it's mostly some kind of oxidation or like dried up grease that's on it. I don't really know what it is. Maybe somebody put grease in the motor to keep them rusting, but it's better to be safe than sorry. Cam bearings are not terribly expensive, and yeah, it's just better to go ahead and do it. So we got the first one out. Let's move on to the next one. This is when we start using this little cone. Slide the cone up into here. It keeps everything lined up. Again, we tighten our tool up to expand. You'll feel it. You don't have to crank on it, just so it's good and tight. Slide your cone up in there so that you're lined up, and then repeat the process. And I'm not just whamming around. I'm using a rubber mallet, and I'm just dunk, 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 and just sliding it through there. I'm not banging extremely hard on it. All right, we got all the cam bearings out. And I would try to show you, but the camera would never pick up how I said they go in different orders. You'd never be able to pick it up on the camera, but it's the thickness of the bearing that is different, because the actual hole inside the cam journal holes actually are different sizes, so the thickness of the bearings is different, and when you hold them, you can just feel it instantly. The camera will never pick it up how, like that one's thinner. That's one of the thick ones. I don't think the camera could ever pick up the difference in them, because it's not like we're talking about an inch or something. We're talking about just a little bit of difference. And if I can get it, maybe you can tell how they're different thicknesses. I don't know, but so we'll save these and put them in our next race engine. They're already worn in real well. No, I'm not saving them. Somebody calm down. Somebody's already screaming at the TV. Just calm down. I'm not saving them. So yeah, we will move on now to cleaning everything up and installing cam bearings. Right. Before I actually install any new cam bearings or anything, I'm going to knock out the old freeze plugs or expansion plugs, whatever you want to call them. I'm gonna knock all these out, and then I'm gonna clean the bearing journals. I'm gonna clean all this, clean everything up, run a brush through everything before I put the new cam bearings in. Clean all the little orifices and all with a brush, then put the bearings in. But make sure you clean first before you put the bearings in. And that's why I'm gonna go ahead and knock these out and clean everything up, and then I'll put the bearings in, as I said. So let me get these knocked out. All right, we got to keep this engine palooza thing here moving along. So while the paint is drying on that block now, to get it in line with the rest of them, I'm going to jump back over here to this one and go ahead and start putting our expansion plugs in, or freeze plugs, whatever you want to refer to them as. One of the things that I like to do, you don't have to do this again, this is something that I like to do. There's nothing that aggravates me more than putting a freeze plug in a motor and then there'll be a little some wonky and that freeze plug leak as soon as it's put in there. Just absolutely irritates me, especially because it'll be the one that's the hardest to get to. So to combat that, I always coat them with just a little dab of Loctite. I'll rub it around the outside out here, stick it in there, let that stuff dry, and it just helps prevent the leaks. And don't worry about it. I'm not using the super duper, we can never get it out again Loctite. At the end of the day, a couple bangs on these things and they still pop out. I've never had any issue getting them back out. And then I'll just take and smear it around there. Because again, I'm not trying to make it so it'll never come out. I'm just a little cheap insurance to prevent against leakage. No big deal. And keep it on the sides. Don't get it all over the back of it and everything, and you'll be fine. There's no worries, no problems. Just drop her right down there where she goes. Wipe your grubby little fingers off so you don't get it all over the fresh paint. And all you want to do is drive them so they're just a little past flush. You don't have to drive them way down in there. Just a little past flush so they can, the ends of them can really grab onto it and let it ride. All right, we're putting in the cam bearings now. I'm going to say this a bunch as I do this. Check them as you go. I went ahead and put the back one in first, and then we do this one, all the way to the front. We do them that way because the tool has to go in from the front. We don't want to be banging around on our bearings. Bearings have a end with a little bit of a taper on them and a more blunt end. You want that taper end to come toward the front. That helps the cam guide itself in as it goes. All right, oil hole, line it up with the oil hole in here. Take your time. There is nobody rushing you to get this done. Tighten our tool up. Take your time to line up with your oil hole. Double check everything. Give it a couple pops. I like to check and check and check as I go. There's no rule that says you have to drive it all the way the first time. I like to check it as I go. To be honest about it, if you go a little too far or if you don't go far enough, you can adjust it. I take me a clean cloth, wipe everything down. Check everything out, make sure everything looks good, lined up good. Move on to the next. So now that we've got all of our King cam bearings in the block, the next thing I will do is put my King main bearings in, rear seal, and drop the crank in. But you'll see that next time because I don't want to make these videos too long. What's going to happen today for me is I'm going to go through these other blocks and knock the cam bearings and expansion plugs in and get them all to the same spot. So it's just one right after another that I'm doing the same process for. That way I don't have to put a tool up, pull the tool out, put the tool up, and go through that. I'm gonna do them all at the same time. So now that we have the King bearings, King cam bearings in this one, we're gonna go through and put the same King cam bearings in these other two over here, the 410 and the 396. 396, yeah, 30 over 396 for the customer build, and the same as we did this 398 here for Wayland. I hope you're following along with that. Please remember to hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, share if you want to with your friends. When we get to 1,000 subscribers, we're going to build an engine here on the channel, and we're going to give it away. And maybe we'll do something different with it and some how-tos, and maybe we'll do some good parts of that. That all depends on how all this goes. But y'all stay tuned, more coming. I hope the Lord blesses you today. I hope you have a fantastic day. God bless y'all, and we'll see you next time.